So 15 seconds. Welcome to this week's edition of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. It's me, Tony B. And going to share some information with you today. And then also joining us will be the country doctor. Yeah, the country doctor will be joining us. You know what, Daniel, can you put that flyer up? You take a look. Yeah, there's information right there. Rob Jones is a project manager and medical doctor. He's going to be talking to us about the after hours clinic and from Carolyn Downs, which is a whole nother thing that this conversation was. I was having a conversation about. I'll tie this all together for you. The Seattle chapter of the Black Panthers started this community healthcare movement. Carolyn Downs is still here today. It's a whole nother issue, but it's a matter of how you take care of yourself. So we'll be talking to the country doctor, and Rob Jones will be here. He'll share information about the coronavirus and how it has impacted what he does and what he has seen in the community. And that'll be at 1:30. Wanted to kind of give you an update on what's going on here. In the state of Washington, how we recover from this COVID-19 nightmare. We've got vaccines, a vaccine that is here now. How is it going to be distributed? What does that look like? What's been taking place? And you know what? If you want to get in on this, you can give me a call at 206-290-9685. That again is 206-290-9685. When Thanksgiving happened, they were pretty confident that new cases over the couple weeks following would continue on a steep trajectory. And in King County, there have been 56,588 cases reported, over 3,800 hospitalizations, and 976 deaths since the outbreak began. That's here in the state of Washington. Now, the number of cases being reported is declining. However, they are still at high levels, and that's according to our health officer, Dr. Jeffrey Duchin. There's about 500 new cases that are reported daily compared to 200 in the spring. And like the rest of the state, COVID-19 vaccine will be limited to the people who are most at risk of becoming infected, such as healthcare and other essential workers and other adults. We know that that's how this distribution is going to ultimately end up working out. So I'm going to try and find some information here about the vaccine distribution and what that's going to look like for you. Essentially in phase one, and what they're calling the jumpstart phase, and that's where we're at right now. As I mentioned before, high-risk healthcare workers and first responders, they're the ones that are going to get access to the vaccine most immediately. Then comes phase 1B. Now, that includes people with illnesses that make them significantly or higher risk for the virus. People with illnesses like cancer, COPD, heart failure, people in long-term care facilities. So that's what they're calling phase 1B. Now, phase 2 lists teachers and people who work in high-risk settings and people with illnesses that put them at moderate risk, like asthma and dementia. Also on that list are the homeless population, people who work at shelters, the prison population and staff, as well as people 65 and older. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is young adults, children, and other jobs not listed in the previous phases. And lastly, that is phase 4. And this is where there's an abundance of vaccines, and anyone who wants one can get one. So how is Seattle going to make this happen to get vaccines out to everyone? Well, it's not going to happen for months. The amount of vaccines that are available, the manufacturing challenges, the distribution challenges, it could be midsummer before a vaccine is distributed widely here in the Seattle area. So again, I'm going to go over this. The vaccine, who's going to get the vaccine? In which order are you going to get the vaccine? Well, again, it's supposed to be done in 4 phases. The first phase, which is where we're at right now, is the jumpstart phase. And this is where high-risk healthcare workers, first responders, that's happening now, that have access to the vaccine. Then 1B, and how we'll get to 1B, hopefully we'll find out what that looks like and what that means. That includes folks who have illnesses that make them high risk for this virus. For folks who have cancer or COPD, heart failure, those again in long-term care facilities. 1B, we'll try to find out how that's going to work out. Then there's phase 2, and you want to find out where you fit in this. We'll try and make that happen for you. But phase 2 is our teachers, people who work in high-risk settings. Does that mean if you're a restaurant worker or if you're a child care worker? We'll have to find that out. And people with illnesses that put them at moderate risk, like asthma and dementia. Also, our homeless population, and people who work at shelters, and the prison population and prison population staff, as well as people 65 and older. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is young adults and people who have other jobs that weren't necessarily listed as part of those other phases. So if you're in phase 2, well, the first shipment of the COVID vaccine arrived on Monday, and we're expected to receive over 62,000 doses that were supposed to be here. Now, there's about 500,000 people in Washington who are eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine in its first distribution phase, that early phase that I was telling you about. And a lot of the folks who are in the long-term care facilities, and it should be available. And these recommendations come from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So the first distribution will go to 17 sites across 13 counties in Washington state. And the vaccine administration sites are concerned about avoiding the burden of assessing eligibility in phase 1A. And that's from the Department of Health. So one consideration is for healthcare employers to provide high-risk workers with a voucher or a letter, including their name and eligibility status, which could be shown along with the badge or ID at an administration site. And so the Department of Health is currently developing such a voucher and exploring the option to pilot a tool that would allow people to self-assess their eligibility. Because, again, describing phase 1, it's in phase 1B, then phase 2, then phase 3, and then phase 4. That's when it should be available. How's that going to happen? When's that going to happen? We don't exactly know yet. The federal government is giving Washington State a total distribution of 222,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine before this month is over. And then Moderna is another one, and they're going to be reviewed on December 17th, and we'll see if this one works as well. It's unknown right now who will be vaccinated first in the later phases. And so, again, on the website, the CDC writes that the goal is for everyone to be able to easily get a COVID-19 vaccine as soon as large quantities are available and as the vaccine supply increases. Washington State will share distribution and prioritization guidelines for future vaccine phases in the coming weeks. So the bottom line is this is all still being figured out, and Department of Health documents say it could take 2 months just to cover the frontline workers, especially considering the vaccine, remember, comes in 2 doses, and it could take several months for the general public to get access to these vaccines. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is our special impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities show that we've been doing since March 13th. Actually, today, I think we're still there. It might be over now on the corner of Rainier and Hudson. One of the things that we're doing for the community and what we call the 12 days of Christmas are giving out free hot meals and then a take home bag of groceries as well. So we are currently at Rainier and Hudson in Columbia City, right on Hudson. God is there, and they're doing the groceries, and also Tiny's Creole Bistro is there. They've got chili today to give away. And here's the thing, if you're thinking, well, I don't want to take something away from someone who needs it. We've got a lot of food. So if you're in the area, someone in the area, get on down to Columbia City on the corner of Rainier and Hudson. Lots of great food there. I mentioned there's meat, there's dairy products, there's fresh produce, there's non-perishable items, there's desserts, there's key lime pies, and then there's also salmon steak as well. So some really great food down there in Columbia City, right on the corner of Rainier and Henderson, part of our 12 days of Christmas. This is day 6. So we've got 6 more days to go. Tomorrow, we're going to be right here at the Rainier Avenue Radio home base at 810 23rd Avenue, right on 23rd, just right off the corner of East Columbia Street. And of course, we've been doing this every Saturday anyway. So we're going to, again, do that. You can come and get as much food as you want. Take as much, you pick out what you want and you take it with you. And Tiny's Creole Bistro food truck is going to be here as well. And so you'll be able to get a hot meal tomorrow while we do our normal community food giveaway on Saturday, right here at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And we're going to take this all the way up until December 24th. Here's the other thing about it. Like I said, 12 days. That's what the 12 days of Christmas means to us. It means we're trying to make sure that our community is fit. The other part of this is that you can also bring a new and unwrapped toy. Now, you don't have to do that to get the food. But if you're thinking, hey, this is really cool, it's something that I'd like to support, how do I do that? You can bring down a new and unwrapped toy anytime we were at a location, and we will make sure that those toys get in the hands of deserving kids and deserving families to also help with their Christmas during the holiday season. So again, bring down a new and unwrapped toy. If you want to do that today in Columbia City, do that. If you want to do it tomorrow from 11 to 3 here at Rainier Avenue Radio, feel free to do that. We'll make sure that those toys get in the hands of folks who are looking for them and would be excited to have them, and just add something extra special on Christmas during our 12 days of Christmas. Again, coming up in a little bit, we'll have the country doctor, Rob Jones. We'll be talking about the impact of the coronavirus and how that's worked out at Carolyn Downs. And couple shows coming up after that, and we'll be back to talk with you more and share more information about coronavirus locally. And then shortly after that, we'll have the country doctor coming up. We'll certainly share more information with you about what's going on at the 12 days of Christmas right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time, And when I'm not busy tearing the roof off the suckers, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, empowering communities and changing lives. The Urban League has been there to serve when our community is at its lowest. It's never mattered what the crisis was. The systemic oppression remains constant for those most vulnerable. Here at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, we'll be temporarily adjusting our hours of operation and available services. If you are in need of resources, we recommend that you give us a call at 206-461-3792. To make an appointment, press 0 and speak with the receptionist. Walk-in hours will be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. And hey, we'll gladly work with you via phone as best as we can if you're exhibiting any signs of illness to assist you with information to save your home, find you a place to sleep, or connect you to job opportunities. The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. That's 206-461-3792. Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, All Day Saturday.
This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blue.
Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Start Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce. This is Start Time.
Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour, K-Fox Night.
Looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the Fox.
Fresh Juice with D-Money in the group.
Myself, D-Money.
Honey Size Patron.
Taylor Hart.
Resistencia, the Northwest Rap Game.
DJ Medina. Chad Cheddar. Northwest Rap Game.
Sergio LaCour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell them who we talking.
Sea Monster Radio, Mo Jams. It's your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mo Jam Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mo Jam Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration all day and all night. Saturdays on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
The number of cases involving crimes against children online has grown during the coronavirus pandemic, joining several other types of offenses that also surged in 2020. Per Patch.com, the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office said at least 63 cases involving internet crime against minors were on record by Friday, surpassing the total filed in 2019 by about 30%. The Seattle Police Department, which operates as a quote-unquote clearinghouse for internet crimes in Washington, sometimes can receive as many as 150 reports each day, which are then distributed to agencies throughout the state for further investigation. That figure can sometimes be up to 3 times higher than levels reached in 2019. The range of crimes and ages vary greatly and can include suspects posing as minors to collect and share inappropriate photos, trying to extort victims, or attempting to meet up with them.
And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
If you're an older adult or someone of any age with underlying medical conditions, you're at a higher risk for severe illness from COVID-19. Look, the good news is there are steps you can take to protect yourself and loved ones. Wash your hands often. Stay home unless you need food, medicine, or medical care. If you need to go out, stay at least 6 feet away. Avoid people who are sick and make a plan. Identify and talk with someone who can help care for you if you get sick. Have supplies like medicine and groceries on hand, or find ways to have them brought to you. And remember, wear a cloth face covering when around others. For more information, call Seattle King County Public Health at 206-477-3977. That's 206-477-3977.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North, Elsie Shadon with Keller Williams Mountain to Sound and the LC Legacy Group, and Tina Lombard with Cardinal Financial. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
Help a child in need during the holidays. The good people at GivingGiftsOfHope.org have requests for baby toys, dolls, trucks, and remote control cars. You can bring unwrapped toys to Taproot Cafe and Bar, where there is a large wrap box to place toys Tuesday through Saturday 11 to 7 and Sunday 11 to 5. Taproot Cafe and Bar is located in Columbia City at 4908 Rainier Avenue South off of Hudson Street. For more info on supporting families during the holidays, go to www.givinggiftsofhope.org. Happy holidays.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
We're back on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, our special broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. The vaccine is out. Are you going to take it? What do you think about the vaccine? Pfizer vaccine is out now, and I guess shortly there will be a vaccine out as well from Moderna. That will be available to folks. There's an anticipation, I think, that we'll get like 400,000 vaccines, just 300,000 healthcare workers. So the way the distribution works is healthcare workers will get these vaccines first. And it's about 300,000 healthcare workers. So we'll figure out how this is going to shake down. The anticipation, again, is that a vaccine won't be readily available to anyone who wants one. Could be months. It's the other part of this big logistical process is how are we going to make this work? If you have a question, hit me up at 206-290-9685. That's 206-290-9685. Let me know what you think about the virus vaccine. If it's something that you're looking forward to, if you think this is going to be a game changer, how long you think it will take for us as a society to say, okay, we're somewhat comfortable with where things are now. There's a vaccine available, and to some extent, we can kind of go back to normal. Are you ready for that? When do you think you will be ready to do that? And of course, if you have, which is understandable, questions about this vaccine, again, there's a process, and we look forward to getting somebody here on the air with us to explain that process of a timeline of creating these vaccines. And this is something that was predicted to take years, and it happened in months, with the assurance that this is safe. Now, I understand why there would be folks who go, well, wait a minute, you're saying trust the science, but when the science doesn't have all the information, that's all the information that the science can give you. The science doesn't predict the future. And when we started this, we were given varying information about the science based off of what was available. As more information became available, the science began to change. So could this happen with the vaccine as well? The initial injections of vaccine, as we begin to see what really happens, how effective they are, if there are more side effects, if there were things outside of the scope of what they were doing during their phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 in order to get this vaccine ready, that may manifest in the larger public as everyone starts to get these vaccines, and everyone, all the different things that go on with all of the individual bodies. We might start to find out that there are some things about these vaccines that we didn't know. This is the first group, the first batch. Does that make you hesitant to take it? 206-290-9685 is the number to call. You're listening to Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Again, I want to remind everyone who listens to Rainier Avenue Radio, or if you're listening for the first time, we're a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week broadcast media network. We broadcast everything from critical programs and shows where you can hear discussions for and by members of our community. Shows like Clean Green Living, where they talk with you about, well, clean and healthy living and fresh produce and the farmers. And of course, there's Afternoons with Monique, where she covers a number of different issues. That airs every Thursday at 1 o'clock. So 1 o'clock, Daniel? 1 o'clock on Thursdays. And then the Clean Greens Living airs at 3:30 on Thursdays. And Masvita Mariari, his show, Seattle Sports Weekly, airs at noon on Thursday. And they just did a show last night. We have another show called Metro Sports Weekly, where we brought on student athletes who signed their letters of intent early for football. And it's really a big deal, too, signing that letter of intent, especially during COVID, because the game has changed. Your ability to go to schools and visit schools and how they check you out. And for a lot of students, it's, that may have been the way that they were going to get their college paid for. And this was disrupted. We didn't have a fall football season, but we did get some kids who had scholarships who committed early, and we had them on the show last night. So yeah, that's what we do at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Again, we have critical programming. Obviously, you can tell that we also have sports programming. We'd normally be broadcasting high school. Well, I guess we'd be moving into basketball right now, as the football season would have ended, but we did not broadcast football because there was no football in the state of Washington. The best guess that we have right now regarding spring sports is that practices will be allowed February 1st. At least that's the deal right now. I know that there was an athletic directors meeting a day or two ago, and I'll see if I can get some information and if that's changed at all. We know that this is going to be flexible depending on what happens with the coronavirus. I'm sure that the fact that there is now a vaccine available may factor in, and but I don't. The messages don't stop your due diligence. Continue to wear a mask, continue to social distance, continue to wash your hands, continue to wipe down surfaces, and all of the things that can help prevent the spread of this virus. More about Rainier Avenue Radio. In addition to critical programming and entertainment programming, talk shows, we have our sports shows, and then we also have our music shows. Now, you can hear pretty much any kind of music on Rainier Avenue Radio. It's all available here. We've got a program called The Mix, where it's, I think it's 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000 pop. We've got Jazz in the Cabinets from Big Poppy, and I think you'll hear everything from 30s, 40s, and 50s, maybe some 60s on that show. And D Money and the crew with Fresh Juice, where you get the latest in hip hop and local artists, along with interviews and then discussions about things going on too, current events in the hip hop world on Fresh Juice. We've got the Northwest Rap Game. It's all rap music by all local artist. Sergio LaCour's Love Lines, and it's exactly what it sounds like. He plays what he calls baby making music, and you can call up and make a request to your loved one or anyone, and Sergio will try and get that on for you. DJ Alibaba, and I'm gonna say it like him, the Surround Sound Studios. DJ Alibaba plays old school cuts and mixes it up, and again, I think you'll hear things from the 80s and 90s, maybe even some 2000s in that particular mix. We've also got a native drumming show. So again, the bandwidth of the music that we play here on Rainier Avenue Radio is pretty extensive. We're going to be back, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Dr. Rob Jones. And he'll share information with us about the After Hours program, how the coronavirus has impacted what's going on at Carolyn Downs, how it's impacted him, and what he sees going on with this coronavirus. We'll be back in a couple minutes with Dr. Rob Jones.
No, you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Stay up to date on the coronavirus. Visit kingcounty.gov/COVID for information, guidance, and resources to help keep our communities safe and healthy. That's kingcounty.gov/COVID. This message is a public service of Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe King. And we host the show Little Line Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Little Line Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
The Trump administration is back in the middle of Capitol Hill's confusing COVID-19 negotiations, offering a $916 billion package to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that would send $600 direct payment to most Americans, but eliminate a $300 per week unemployment benefit favored by a bipartisan group of Senate negotiators. Though the offer was endorsed by Mitch McConnell, Democrats immediately blasted the plan over the administration's refusal to back restoring the $300 per week bonus unemployment benefits that lapsed in August. The House on Wednesday passed a one-week funding bill to give lawmakers more time to sort through the hot mess they've created for themselves after months of futile negotiations and posturing. The pressure to deliver is intense. All sides say failure isn't an option, the AP reports.
And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is our special broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Again, we started doing this on March 13th, and here we are, December 18th, and things are worse than they were. The country doctor community health centers are fighting for equity and justice through community and health, and that is the mission by providing high quality caring and culturally appropriate primary health care that addresses the needs of people regardless of their ability to pay. And joining me is Dr. Rob Jones. Dr. Jones, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Tony. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
And I have to thank you. My understanding is you actually showed up at one of our 12 days of Christmas events. And first of all, thank you, much appreciated. One of the things that we're providing to the community over these 12 days are hot meals and groceries. And I think you were at our day 2 location at the Union Gospel Mission. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I stopped by to spread some information about the clinic, and the work that you all were doing was so great. I stuck around to be a little bit more of a part of it.
Well, thank you. And as you can tell, there was a need for it, and appreciate you being there and helping us with that need and try and keep it organized, and at the same time try and keep folks socially distanced as well.
You're right about that.
So, you know what, before we get into some specifics about, country health, doctor community health centers, give us some background on yourself, where you're from, and then ultimately, what led you into the field of medicine?
Great question. I'm from all over, really. My parents were military. So I was born overseas in the Philippines, my sister and I, and my parents got out got out after that sister was born, and I consider myself having grown up in Brooklyn, New York. I went to grade school, high school there. Ended up going to University of North Carolina for college, that's where my mother was born and raised, and so I'm a Tar Heel in that regard. After that, I became a teacher and moved out to Oakland, California, and I was a 7th and 8th grade science teacher for 4 years. And in a way, even though I always liked science and felt like a healer and a caretaker, I'm the oldest of a big family. In a way, my time as a school teacher is what really gave me the kick in the pants to explore medicine. I'd say as a science teacher in the Black community, I found that people were coming to me for questions way beyond what I was teaching in the classroom. So my students are coming to me asking me, it's like, hey, Mr. Jones, my grandma is sick with such and such. Like, what's going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. I'm teaching about the solar system. But the realization I had was the level of trust that they had in me, combined with the level of need that existed outside of my classroom. It really gave me a kick in the pants to explore if I could help my community in a different way, and decided to go explore getting into medicine, and ended up at the University of Washington, and that's how I landed in Seattle. And I've loved it. Been here since 2009, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Wow, that's a great story. That's a great story. And so is it something? It sounds like to the extent that again, as a science teacher, and you describe yourself as kind of the the oldest of a large family. Taking care of other people, that's just the way that you grew up. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that something that was instilled in you, something that was just kind of innate based off of your family circumstances?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I'm 41 now, put myself out there. But Brooklyn, I would say that growing up in the 80s and 90s in Brooklyn in a large family, community and safety and the interaction of those two, like the role that community plays in health and safety, was really retrospectively, I'm realizing how much that was emphasized. Always be looking out for one another, always be considering what the other person's experience is, and vice versa. And so I think as the oldest, like you said, take care of your sisters, take care of your brothers, your cousins, whatever, make sure to get home safe, make sure nobody's messing with them, stuff like that. No one explicitly said, your civic duty is such and such. But what was implied through words and actions was that what's important are the people around you. And nobody makes it into that next day without that community.
Fighting for equity and justice through community health. Let's talk about the Country Doctor Community Health Centers, and familiarize us with the community health centers, and why Country Doctor?
Well, it's Country Doctor and Carolyn Downs. I make a big point of that. I'm particularly housed, my home base is the Carolyn Downs site. But years ago, Country Doctor Community Health Centers and Carolyn Downs family medicine clinics were formed to serve the community. Their mission statement from the onset was to meet the needs of those who are marginalized and those who don't have the resources and access to the things that the things that the haves have. A little tongue twister there. I'm particularly excited about my place, given the role that you point out, my passion for community, particularly the Black community, with respect to Carolyn Downs Clinic, because that particular clinic was founded by the Panther Party, and is now the last remaining clinic established by the Black Panther Party. So I really embrace that history with respect to Seattle and with respect to the world for the Carolyn Downs side of things. But in general, the Country Doctor and Carolyn Downs, when you walk through those doors at either of those sites, you will see great diversity. You'll see great attention to care. You'll see great concerns for the actual lived experience of the patients that walk through the doors and follow through. It's important that we emphasize the primary care aspect of this. Like, that primary care is also long-term, longitudinal care. It's nuanced care. It's care that takes into account the personal experience and the community experience of the patients.
It's hard to separate these things if you're in Seattle. You mentioned the Carolyn Downs and the Seattle Black Panthers, and the Seattle chapter of the Black Panther Party was the first chapter formed outside of Oakland, and did amazing things like the Carolyn Downs Center, like feeding programs that have now become standard in our country, and the foresight at that point to think about the health care that Black folks were going to need. And then we come up to this pandemic, and initially there wasn't a mainstream awareness that this was going to be exacerbated in the Black community, as is most things that happen under these circumstances. So let's talk about that from where you sit. When this pandemic started to happen, what was taking place, again, for folks who at the time maybe weren't getting information or misinformation, and the science wasn't right on initially about some things, and there was some myths going on there. What was going on in your world at that time?
I mean, in my world, I feel to a degree, I think in our world, we were as in the dark as the general public. Things were happening at a level that we in our natural workflow aren't engaged in. I wasn't necessarily seeing, especially in a primary care setting, like the way this we initially experienced this, with people getting really sick. And when people are getting really sick, they're going to the emergency rooms, or they're going directly to the hospital. They're not necessarily coming to our clinic. So there was a bit of a delay in our awareness or realization of what those impacts were, with respect to being sick and whether or not it was from this disease or not. And then that feeds into a delay in being able to take action, and preventative action in particular. And you combine that with all of the political unrest that was going on, all the misinformation that was going on. If you remember, when this first came out, Black people couldn't get it.
Right. That was one of the things that was pervasive in the community, and we were on right away and talking to folks, and in particular educators, because remember, it took a while for school to, they finally did, but we were talking to teachers who had students in their class who were confidently saying, "Oh, we can't get this." And at the same time, we had Asian members of our community who were already being discriminated against. This was at a time when Kirkland, Seattle was thought to be the epicenter of this thing because of what had happened at the nursing home. And so while this was going on, that's what was going on here. We were like, oh, we're getting all of these things being said. Science is a little slow right now because science is trying to figure it out. One thing that we do know is that this is going to impact our community, and we were able to get folks on the air who were COVID positive when there again, the thought that among Black people, you couldn't get it. And we were fortunate to be able to get people who were willing to come on at that time and face whatever stigmas were attached to it, to say, hey, I have this isn't good. And I appreciate your honesty in saying, that you're kind of in the same place as everybody else. And you were dealing with some of those same, again, I'll just call it societal issues, while you're trying to medically catch up.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not superheroes. We're not magicians. I think our skill set is to take the information that's out there, especially, my mindset as a former educator, former school teacher, is that like my job is to take the information that's out there, make sense of it, and communicate it to you in the way that I know that you can hear it and that you can understand it. But yeah, there were times like people will call me like, so what's the inside scoop? And I'm like, bruh, I mean, when you know, I'll know. And now that we've got more and more information, it's super helpful. Like, they're like the nuances of how the vaccine works and what's the difference between the vaccine and things like that. Those aren't things that you don't necessarily need to know those things, but it's helpful to understand it, especially at my level, at the like health provider levels. Helpful to understand it so that you can give people information that'll help them make decisions and help them know what to expect, or help them anticipate certain things, whether it be timelines or side effects or whatever. And I think that's the position that we're in right now, where your community clinic, your family medicine doctor, your general practitioner, they can be very helpful in guiding you through this current phase that we're in.
And I'd like to get your thoughts on this. First of all, what are you experiencing in regards to questions about the vaccine? And then I'm going to want your opinion on this too, what you would like to share people. And I'm sure you understand why there's some trepidation, in particular from Black folks and communities of color, about the vaccine. And then the other thing, I had mentioned this earlier in the show, is that the science is still learning. And what we have was a timeline where normally to create a vaccine for something like this takes years, and they say it just takes that long. This happened in months, and all we know about it is they're saying, well, it's new technology that allowed for this to happen. But we don't know yet is what will happen to folks who are taking this vaccine. We hear 95%. And some other things that sound really good, and we're being told to trust the science. Bottom line is, what are you feeling from members of the community, again, as a trusted resource? And then here's the big one, and I'm asking you to go out there on this. What are your thoughts about vaccines, and in particular, for communities who, for reasons that we all know that I won't get into a bunch of them, are skeptical about these types of things?
Well, first and foremost, I would say this: the communities that are skeptical have the absolute right to be. As an industry, as a society, we have not earned the trust. There's no reason we, as an industry, should expect that we roll out a vaccine and just demand that people go ahead and take it. You want to talk about Tuskegee, you want to talk about housing injustice, like anything, like talk about this whole summer or whatever. Talk about when the virus first came out, that we allowed a message to be perpetuated that Black people couldn't get it. And right then and there, I could tell you that it's probably not it. There's nothing genetically different about you based on your skin color, okay? Your body's response, if your body's response is different, then there's likely something else going on. It has something to do with your environment, most likely. The science continuously backs that up. So if Black people are being impacted differently, we need to hold surrounding society and our systems accountable for equitable care and equitable treatment within that system. So to my patients, I let them know that, like, look, you don't need to feel embarrassed that you're skeptical about this. You don't need to feel ashamed. Like, it is complete. I'd be concerned if you weren't skeptical and concerned. But one of the reasons I'm proud to be in the position I'm in, and I'm grateful and thankful and blessed to be in the position I'm in, is that, like, I don't represent, people get excited about diversity or whatever. Diversity, the power of diversity is the representation of that person and that community in the room when decisions are being made. The person that created this virus, the principal investigator for this virus, is a young Black woman. Not this virus. I'm sorry. That's going to send a lot of conspiracy theorists on the vaccine. The principal investigator that helped create this vaccine is a young Black woman. That means, like, in the past, before we were able to be in the room, the stereotypes, the ill will that was allowed to persist in a room was then allowed to become a part of policy. But now that we've got faces in the room and lead faces, people in charge, a lot of that stuff gets squashed.
Can you repeat that again, just to make sure that people hear that clearly about what you said about one of the creators of the vaccine, not the virus, again, what you were just saying, just and the importance. I just think that that's important. I don't think we can hear that enough.
It's absolutely. We have Black and brown people, color, indigenous people. We have people in places where they were not allowed 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so when I speak to this community, to our community, and I vouch for this vaccine and this process, it's with the knowledge that, yes, we do have new technology that allowed us to have this new approach. This is a genetic approach that we're able to take, genetic with respect to the virus. It's not impacting our genetics, genetic with respect to the virus. We have that capability now. That's a new capability. We have a societal system where there are more Black and brown people in these positions, these scientific positions, these regulatory positions that are able to cut out the nonsense. We have this pride in our community about we don't take no mess. That doesn't stop when we get into med school or when we get into whatever program or whatever. We bring that sensibility into those spaces, and that influences how things play out. And that's why the studies show that people do better, that patients do better when their medical teams have more diversity. It's not because, I see a Black face, so now I'm going to take the medication. Like, that's oversimplistic. That's not what it is. My overall message, my overall point is that we have the technical ability, we have the personnel on hand, personnel that looks like us on hand, has been a part of creating this virus. And furthermore, we are now in an era, I call it a George Floyd era or whatever, where you really would have to be out of your mind to try to do something sideways against Black and brown people at this level. Like, all eyes are on this project. Another reason why it was able to happen faster than other things is because it's all hands on deck for development of the vaccine. Because if this doesn't happen, if we don't get vaccinated, if we don't get to the levels of immunity in our community that could knock this virus out to where it's a non-issue, then it's going to continue to destroy us economically, socially, globally. So all hands are on deck. That means, like, the things like the other possible research into vaccines and focus on vaccines. There's plenty of other things that we can try to create vaccines for, but we're not worried about that right now. We're worried about coronavirus. Not the reason why that timeline was able to be condensed. They're not taking shortcuts. They're just hyper focused on getting this done.
And Dr. Jones, can you what do you think is the potential for a virus like this to start to mutate once a vaccine becomes available? And we know that, this is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, a respiratory illness, and there was SARS and some other things that we've got vaccines for. Just your thoughts on this. We develop a vaccine for it, and these the viruses try to survive.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When it comes to whether or not the virus will mutate, that's a thing that time really will tell. There's evidence on the front end where we can get a clue as to whether or not it'll mutate or not. But especially in science, we never say 100%.
Okay.
So I would say, yes, there's always a possibility that a mutation can happen. Those things tend to happen within certain constraints, though. And when they design these vaccine approaches and these therapies, the prudent approach is to design it in a way that accounts for the possible range of mutations. But again, that's what, when we want to talk about, is it too soon to release a vaccine? Is it too soon to say what the effects will be? I would say, yeah, we don't have the length of time yet to know what the implications are going to be on an environmental mutation level for this. I'm not a virologist in training. My training is public health and medicine. So there's probably a more sophisticated way to address that. But I would say that side effects are possible. Mutations are possible. The actions that we're taking right now and the support for this vaccine is based on what we know about it so far and the most likely results. So we have studied this vaccine long enough to give you a strong idea of what most likely will happen or what most likely won't happen. But of course, a mutation could happen down the line, but let's not catastrophize this. That doesn't mean that it turns into the Walking Dead. Like a mutation just means that most likely just means that one of those little proteins, those little spikes that you see, that changes. And now we create a vaccine to address that spike. That's how the flu vaccine works every year. We take a look at what was happening in the Southern Hemisphere, what spike they had on that protein, and then we make a vaccine against that one for when it comes up north. And that's sort of the name of the game, science. Mother Nature is real smart. Mother Nature is real smart.
My guest again is Dr. Rob Jones, Carolyn Downs Clinic. Just consider us like those 7th and 8th graders. We figure we're going to go to you for the information.
That's why I got in the game.
We're going to have to do this again and talk a little bit more because we just barely got started. But I do want to give you a couple minutes here if there's just something that you would like to say before you go, that you want to share, whether it's just about what you do or the Carolyn Downs Clinic or just things you want to share, anything you want to share here, and we'll get you back on at a later date. But take a couple minutes and
thank you. Yeah. But thanks again for having me. I can't tell you how happy I am to be on this program. I've followed you all for a number of years now, and I'm so proud of what you do for the community. And
thank you
for my role and for Carolyn Downs and Country Doctor. I want to say to the community, we are here for you. I want you to know that, like me in particular, I represent the After Hours Clinic, which is effectively like the urgent care of the Country Doctor Carolyn Downs Network. We are there 7 days a week. You can get in there on the weekends. On the weekends from 11 to 5, and on the weekdays from 6 to 9. Come and see us if you need us. We can connect you to whatever service you need. We will not turn you away if you don't have the ability to pay. If you have opiate use and substance disorder, we have programs for that. We have programs for sexual health. We have programs for behavioral health. We have programs for transition from prison to the community. We're here for you, and that is our goal. Our mission is to meet your needs. So we hope to see you, and come on down.
All right, Dr. Jones, we'll get you back again. You've been listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world's broadcast of the impact of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. That's it. It's all the time I have. That's going to do it for the kid. Until next Friday, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out.